I think people keep harping on this Ken and Trish situation. It's Ken and Trish, and you introducing this man around my children and letting them move in, and I don't even know them, and we already had prior issues that we never even met. And then when we first meet in person, he pulls a gun on me. So, boom.
So you brought up the physical altercation between you and Ken. Why did Ken pull out the gun on you?
Hey, it's a brotherhood! Woohoo!
Your story has been a central part of Love and Marriage Huntsville this season. We're seeing Trish navigating, finalizing her divorce with you. There's been speculation about whether Ken and Trish were involved with each other while Trish was still legally married to you. We're going to learn more of that from your point of view, from your perspective. And also, we want to know if there's a possibility that you could ask Melody out on a date one of these days. So we're gonna get into all of that and
Oh, y'all
more.
want to y'all want to be messy today. I thought this was a bro chat.
What was that experience like for you at your first reunion? Were you able to clear up your side of the story?
Who said I was on a reunion?
Well, you are a big part of this season.
Right.
So
It
it
You
would
only
be
don't,
makes
crazy to
sense.
don't,
not have
What
you
do we want to talk
there.
about?
So what were they talking about
You
without
better
you
be on a
there?
reunion.
man. Who said I was on a reunion?
It would
Y'all
be
must
crazy
my
if you
story.
wasn't.
Um, I gotta be careful, okay? But all I'm gonna say is, um, I wasn't, I wasn't really expecting. I wasn't expecting to be kind of like attacked by certain people that I don't know. I wasn't expecting certain
Feel you.
things by the hosts, and I was thrown off. So I think they felt I was a little aggressive. So I might not have stayed as long as I could have.
So Carlos King was very opinionated on your story.
See, y'all trying to get me in trouble. I don't. Carlos is. That was the first time I met Carlos, and that was
Yeah.
the first and last time I've ever spoken to him in person. So
Right.
what I've had to learn now, and I don't want to discredit no networks, no, because I love my my producers and I understand the platform we've been given, right? But there are certain people that are just not in touch and they don't really quite understand or maybe care, right? And
Mm.
it's hits the fan. And so that's why I want to, I think if anything, this journey will help not just others, but it'll help Love and Marriage and reality TV on how to handle, their cast members and the castmates and stuff, because there's a lot of other stuff, moving parts behind the scenes that you don't hear about, and it's hard for us to talk about because obviously there's fine line between protecting obviously your platform and then
Right.
having
The
grievances.
actual people.
But the
Yeah,
reunion
Well,
is going to be interesting.
yeah.
we understand. We got Damien here.
You shake the. Oh yeah, you said you did work. You do look kind of familiar.
Well, I didn't work on. I don't think you and I've ever worked together. I only did season 1 and 2, but I'm
Oh,
sure
that
we
was a
know a
long
lot of
time.
the same people. I love the behind the scenes aspect of it all and how that works. So I want to hear from you how you are integrated into the show. What did production call you? Was that facilitated through Trish?
My son was telling me that they were filming something at the house. He didn't know. He just said there was cameras. So I don't know. That was the initial first inkling of anything, and then I was communicating with Trish via text message. We never lost communication. We always just communicated through via text, for children or whatever. And she had mentioned that they were filming something, but it was under the pretenses that it was a pilot for a dance moms type situation. It wasn't like dance moms themselves, but she said it was a pilot. Um, and 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 I have receipts, but that doesn't even matter. So she basically on the premise of, hey, this is a dance mom situation. I want you to sign a release form for my daughter Zaria because she's a dancer. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, cool, send it over. She sent it to me, and I'm not stupid. I'm not blind. It said Love and Marriage Huntsville. So I asked her about it, and she said, "Oh well, yeah, well we kind of Stormy asked me to come on for like just to kind of be on, and they kind of wanted to. It just turned into something we don't really know. They just wanted to come on and film, and so I'm like, okay, I signed it for my release, but there was nothing. She didn't ask me to be on it at that moment. She was just saying, "Hey, can you sign it for my daughter?" And then eventually she texted me and said, "Hey, can you come film for Love and Marriage to talk about our divorce?" And I told her, "Why would we have to do that on TV? Because we haven't even really talked about it in real life. So why would I want to go on?" And then I just didn't understand what would be the point, because I understand what comes with this. Like I said, I work in entertainment. I have famous friends, and I know what they go through. So I pretty much I talked to a lot of people about it at the time. She just wanted to talk about the divorce, and I was like, okay, let me. I was upset at first. First, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get lawyers involved, all this, and then I had to sit back and think. And come to find out, they had told me they had already started filming, I think in like December of last year. So I'm like, you guys have already been filming for 2 months, and you want to talk about a divorce. So what have y'all been talking about prior to me coming on the show? So I had to consider the fact that they had been filming for so long, and whatever had been said is going to be out there, regardless of whether my name is out there. We've been married long enough. The internet is savvy enough to understand who I am. So regardless whether, so my voice would have been silent basically, and everybody would have been, because I watched the episodes and I'm like, for 4 or 5 episodes, you guys are talking about me and not mentioning my name because I wasn't signed up. Well, I decided to pray about it, talk to my people, consider it, think about all of the pros and cons, and I understood that they had already started. So I talked to the producer, producer Marcus. I went to Huntsville and I had a real candid conversation with him. And I told him, don't play with me. This is my real life. So I want y'all to know that, I don't know what's being said, but, as I kind of understood what the narrative kind of was, but they didn't know. So I think the issue was somebody didn't do their research on who I was and where I come from. And so I made the decision based on having a real candid conversation with Marcus, the producer, and he was honest and upfront. I told him, like I said, don't play with me. It is what it is now, but I need to know that, okay, I can tell my story. And then boom, I decided to go ahead and do the first. I wasn't supposed to be on here this long. It wasn't. I was coming to do an appearance or whatever you want to call it, but this is real life for me. So I don't care about cameras and reality and all that. So I think whatever I presented to the network on film behind the scenes resonated with someone to where they either think I'm crazy, delusional, funny, handsome, whatever. But I'm here now. So
Ken, Trish, and the kids, they were already filming before you were approached. And you were approached as this show being a dance show for your daughter.
a pilot for a potential dance show, not a
A
specific
pilot.
dance show.
A
Yeah,
pilot. So do you feel like Trish misled you when presenting this whole show to you?
of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I could have sat back quietly, and then you guys wouldn't even be talking about them this year because there'd be nothing to talk about. Like they would have not made it past season one. I made a very conscious decision, and like I said, I prayed on it, and I talked to several people. I talked to my children about it, um, and ultimately, my decision was led by the Holy Spirit, or whatever you want to call it. My grandma said Holy Spirit, and so that's where we are now. Like, however it started, it was it's pretty messed up, but I'm gonna write my own story.
With Love and Marriage Huntsville, Trish and Ken, they're the newest couple on the show. I want to discuss what led you and Trish, kind of the early issues that you guys decided to separate. What led you there? What would you say was the timeline for your separation from kind of moving upstairs to around the corner to out of the city? How would you map that timeline out?
The relationship, we were together from 17, pretty much high school. Her being a sophomore, me being a junior. We went to both proms. I'm a year older than her. I graduated 2004. She graduated 2005. She moved in with me in high school while I was in college. Played football. She got pregnant. I had my son. We got married. No issues. We're young. We don't even like this is. I tell people all the time. We got married on the cusp of social media. There was no Facebook. So the world was not connected. So we wrote letters to each other. The type of relationship that we'd established, and then also me growing up in the church, my mindset then was, I don't want no baby mama. I want to do the right thing. Let's just get married. I want to go to heaven, right? Whatever that the idea I had at that time, at that 17, 18 year old me. when you're young and you're trying to grow into stuff and you're trying to be a parent, you're trying to discover yourself, you're trying to find a career, you have trauma, you have all these different things that are never talked about, and you come from two different lifestyles and two different backgrounds. Um, our relationship was what it was as we developed through being teenage, adolescence into adulthood. So there was always good times, bad times. I don't know, but I don't. The disconnect came after years and years of, I guess, me feeling emasculated and not enough, arguing, disrespect, lying. But I don't. Right now, I've been trying to deep dive into what I did wrong. I think I started this journey on this TV show with just this anger and resentment for all the things that occurred. But I realized that it's not gonna resonate until I fully understand, like, what did I do wrong, or what could I have done differently, and that's what I'm still trying to navigate. I sit back and think about it all the time. But we grew apart, y'all.
You work with like a therapist or like a pastor to help you working through it? Because I think it's really awesome that you're like mentioning like how you're working through your side of things. Because a lot of times it's hard to see our side of things, especially because we know what we feel and how it happened to us. So like, how do you work through that for yourself? Because that's like very powerful. A lot of people don't really talk about that, but especially men, we don't really talk about that a lot. Especially when we're trying to raise kids, you're trying to grow up yourself, you're trying to get your education and like move past all the stuff that happened to us when we were kids.
Man, I'll be honest, man. I have a great family foundation. My
That's
faith and
awesome.
like like my grandma's 96. My dad just passed. Like, I come from a real strong faith base. Like, no pastor, none of that. My grandma says Holy Spirit. Now, she's Adventist and she's Bible, all this, but as me now at 39-year-old, I'm more spiritual and I'm in tune with life and the world and energy. So no, I don't talk to a pastor.
Okay.
I wear my heart on my sleeve. Really, I talk to a lot of people, but I do have a clinical psychologist, Dr.
Awesome.
Charles Waller. Shout out to Dr. Waller. He's my clinical psychologist. That's part of my podcast.
That's
I
so cool.
have a Break Bread podcast, and I think everybody should do a childhood agenda. So I really want to push a childhood agenda so you can find out your childhood traumas and why we date who we date, and how your mom and dad affected you and how it goes into relationships. So yes, Dr. Charles Waller, he's gonna be happy I shouted him out.
That's really dope. I like hearing that. That's pretty cool.
It's interesting to kind of hear from your perspective that you felt was kind of a long build up of feeling emasculated, like lots of kind of issues building up. When did you first realize that Trish and Ken were in communication? Was it after you decided to separate or before?
In 2016, 2017, when I moved to Baltimore, she started working out. So after her mom
Mhm.
and dad passed, she had always had this motto, alive at 55. So she went there was two gyms that opened up. I think it was 24E and Phase 3. She went there and she was working out, and I was kind of trying to work out with her, but eventually, she thought it was competition. And, I really just I've noticed Ken on Instagram. It was the chocolate emojis. I mean, the first time I noticed it was in 2017 when he was putting chocolate emojis under her pictures. And it was like all the time, like chocolate
No,
emoji,
ma'am.
strong arm and all that. And I'm like, who is this guy? And it's like, it's my homeboy. And I'm like, you don't have any homeboys. You can't have a homeboy if we've been together for this long. No, but I'm not a jealous person, bro. And it wasn't even about any of that. It was just like, my thing is, if we're together, you don't have any friends that I don't have, that I don't know them.
Yeah.
The Ken situation wasn't a big deal until I would say towards the separation, when I didn't know who she was dealing with, and she lied to me about who she was dealing with. And it wasn't about who you're talking to. It's about who's around my children. Like, I have a daughter and a son, and mind you, I'm traveling Monday through Friday. So people understand, during a 5-year period, right? When I decided to separate, I was always going to the house, cooking for them. I made sure the transition was as peaceful as possible. But I mean, the traveling aspect is.
Were they coming to you as well? Or was it mainly you going
They
to them?
came to me one time, and she told them that if they come back, that she was not gonna buy them toys and all this other stuff. Like, they came to my apartment one time to spend the night. My daughter has not slept with me in over 4 years. I went from my daughter in the bed with me her whole life to where she has not spent the night with me in 4 years. 4 years. I haven't spent 24 hours with her. And I blame me. I blame me because I allow my emotions to get to me and it alienate me. And then that, like, but I know I can't get these years back. So like now, I'm not making no more excuses. So yeah, I just want my daughter and my son to be okay. I want to be happy, healthy, and whole. That's it. All this TV shit, I don't give a fuck about it. Excuse my language. Like y'all don't even understand. I don't. And it's gonna get worse before it gets better. But that's where my faith, that's where my faith remains. See, y'all got me on here crying and shit, man.
It's okay.
But
Somebody
your
crying
kids
So
are
on
gonna see
TV.
this too. They're gonna see
Like,
you
bro.
fight for them. They're gonna see that you
Yeah.
Right.
weren't just passively sitting there. Because I
Hmm.
think, especially for me, a lot of us have a lot of dad issues as well. And like I know for me, if I saw my father actively pushing and actively, going on trying to do something about it and not being passive about it, that means a lot and that makes a difference. And that will be seen and appreciated.
Right. Or
But
trying to be the
I'm just
tough
saying I'm
guy.
not doing enough. It ain't enough, bro.
Of course,
I, I've
I
been, I've
understand
been,
that.
I've been having that same sentiment, like, oh, this. I talk to him all that. It's not enough. That's why I'm in Huntsville, and that's why nothing else matters. Like when I was just with my son and my daughter,
Good for you for realizing
it
it
was
and
like,
making the changes and making
Yeah.
sure that you got there and making sure that you're doing the things you have to change.
Hmm.
Not a lot of people make changes, and not a lot of people are being self-aware, especially in this day and age. That don't happen a lot.
Nope.
there is a narrative, like an absent father narrative that is on the show. And you did say that for 4 years you haven't spent that night with your daughter the way you're used to. Why? Why is that the case? Why was that the case?
for one, I never thought I would have to go to court to force someone to let my daughter come stay with me. Two, my daughter has her own traumas that hasn't been worked through. So I don't want to force her, right? But then
For
part of me
sure.
wants to force her. There's been moments where I've allowed Trish to, I would say, manipulate the situation as far as saying, hey, she's busy, or hey, this, or saying, like just pretty much making excuses for when those moment in times come. So when I separated, and this is really hard for me to explain everything, y'all, because I'm trying to stay within, I'm trying not to do too much,
Yeah.
right? Y'all have to understand, I have to still protect my children, and
Yeah.
I hate to say it, I have to protect Trish because whatever I do affects her, affects my children.
Your children.
Well, I want to give you the floor to answer this. Something that Trish did say on the show, losing her parents 7 months apart. She also talks about how her sister died in her arms July 2020. During that time, while she was trying to figure out life, Trish says that you were out enjoying your life, living your life. And you said to her, Trish says this, that you said to her that she's too close to her family. Did you tell Trish that she was too close to her family when she was going through all of that loss?
No, I probably said you care way more about your family than you do mine,
Mm.
and it's based on years and years of how my family was treated versus hers. And like I said, I don't want to go into, because if I was sit
Details.
here and break down all of that about her family and all of this, because I don't come from that trauma. I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of childhood traumas. A lot of my trauma came from this marriage, right? I didn't see anybody die until I saw her mom, dad, and sister, and all three of them, I saw them with their mouth open, right, and never experienced death at all. My dad died on Christmas of this past year, and Trish didn't even come to my dad's funeral or my daughter. She took her to a dance competition, so she can say I wasn't there for her. But I guess payback is a motherfucker. But I
Mhm.
promise you, I paid for the funerals. I promise you, I made the videos for their stuff. I promise you, I was there for her in every capacity I could be as a husband and a father. And people, she keeps, y'all, this storyline. Let's ask, when did they die? How long did we stay after? Was her sister and her nephews living with me in my house, in our house? Yeah. Did I go to work? And as soon as I sit down at my desk, she calls me and saying my sister won't wake up. And I get back, and the first thing I do is I call my brother and I say, "Yo, can you go get my kids? I don't know what's going on." And I get there, and my brother had already been over there to make sure he got them, but it was too late. Like I look, I'm sorry, I didn't. Yo, I'm sorry they died. I'm sorry. Like what else could I have done? I don't know.
So you're
But I
saying
was
the
never I
year.
was never just absent and just outside doing all this and doing all that. I probably was, if anything, I was trying to figure it out, because when you don't have nobody to talk to at home, sometimes you do go out and find other people to talk to.
So you're saying in 2020, the year that her sister died, her sister was living with you all
They all were
during the
living.
pandemic.
See, this is y'all gonna get me in trouble. Yes, they were
Okay.
living with me. Yes, and there were times where I didn't even eat. Her sister, her and her two nephews, my two kids were living with me. She would get mad at me. I was a chef. If I went and got food and all this, she would get mad at me if I didn't have enough food for everybody. Mind you, she's just a 44-year-old grown woman, a 20-year-old, 19, whatever, and then a 15-year-old. There was times where I would go get food. I was so passive that I didn't want to argue. I would go get food, and if it wasn't enough, I wouldn't eat.
Mm.
Because I didn't want to hear her fuss about her sister and her nephews that ain't paying no bills around here.
Yeah, so 2006, you guys are married. 2016, you're away for a job. And
2017.
2017. And then 2017 is the same year that you see the Instagram comments from Ken. Between 2017 and 2020, did Ken and Trish have any communication?
Yes. The first time that I knew it was anything other than just the chocolate emojis was I went to go to the car, like the rental. We had a car, and I went to get a lighter, and the text messages came through. The lick you like a lollipop. I get the number. I didn't say nothing to her. I call his phone,
Right.
and
And that
he's
was
like,
before 2020 that he said, I want to lick
2017.
you. I
This,
see.
this all this is all when I'm coming back from Baltimore. She's in the gym. She's got new friends. The
Oh
emojis.
wow.
So into the 2017, 2018 era, it's like, oh, I'm finding myself.
Yeah, this is like a getaway era for
I'm
her.
inspired by these men that want to work out, but when I want to work out, it's competition. I don't want to compete with you. Like we can work out together, but you're inspired by these other men because you're getting an attention. You're getting your sexy back. You know what I'm saying? You've been married
You
forever.
you were going to be cock blocking.
Yeah. Oh man, what if
Yeah, that's what you were going to be doing. You was going to be stopping it.
she like she getting mad at me and think it's competition and knowing like, bro, I play football. We can work out easily, like no
Yeah.
issues. But it became definitely a situation where she didn't want me in the gym, so I stopped going. She used to tell me that, like, I had a little dad bod. She was like, "Oh, I love your dad bod. Like, it's okay, your stomach and all this." But then when I go through her phone, she tells Ken he has the husband body goals of her dreams.
Mm.
Can't make that up.
Mm.
Right.
So
So you brought
2017,
up.
the
Mhm.
messages. Didn't
Yeah.
really hear about it after that, and then I found out about Ken towards the 2020, like that time frame, the 2020 time frame. So you have to understand, Trish is very much private. She's very much didn't talk about stuff. She's cybersecurity, so she had 18 encrypted passwords. So I never even got an inkling to even go in her phone, even if I wanted to. I couldn't.
Wow.
So I went to get a lighter, and the message, the phone was attached. So you know how that goes. Most men, we the ones get caught up. It's always us. This time it was her. The message came through, and it said Ken, and it said, "I want to lick you like a lollipop."
Oh,
I don't make that shit up, y'all. Like, I can't make it up. Things in my mind. One thing about me, I'm never gonna lie. My story's never gonna change because it's ingrained in my mind. So I mentioned it to her,
Trauma.
and I want y'all to be clear. Fidelity is not why we are not together, y'all.
No.
Right? I think people keep harping on this Ken and Trish situation. It's Ken and Trish, and you introducing this man around my children and letting them move in, and I don't even know them, and we already had prior issues that we never even met. And then when we first meet in person, he pulls a gun on me. So, boom.
So you brought up the physical altercation between you and Ken. Why did Ken pull out the gun on you?
And see, and this is the thing about reflection and accountability. And it took me until Ken called me a month ago. We had a 5-hour conversation, which is all I ever wanted. for me to
Wow.
have clarity and understand what I did wrong. You
Yeah.
know, I pulled up to the house. Trish asked me to pick up my daughter. You know, she's going out of town like she normally do. She said, you know, stay at the house. So I would stay at the house. She said, pick up Zari at 7. I pull up at 6:40. She's in the driveway with her bags. And then there's a Range Rover like behind me, and he pulls up on the side. But I didn't know this was Ken at the time. Mind you, I don't know who she's talking to. Never asked. We don't. That wasn't our. That was. It's not like none of my
That's how
business.
you talked.
If
Yeah.
you're around my kids, then I should know. But if you're dating or fucking or whatever, I don't care, bro. Like I'm
Yeah.
trusting her.
Yeah.
So I, you know, I get out. I'm joking with her. I'm like, oh, you know, where you going? Oh, I'm going with my friend. And I look and I see the Range Rover, and I'm like, your friends don't. They don't have any money. They're broke. So they're not. That's not. I'm sorry. I don't bring no names. But I decided. I said, can you introduce me? Because at this time, at this moment in time, I had got inclination that my son and my daughter had been around because my daughter was she's kind of acting weird, but they would hang out after the gym and go get, you know, smoothies and shit. That's what they were doing. They were spending time going get salads and stuff at the same time after the gym because my daughter would stay in the gym with her. So that's how they kind of started bonding, I guess. And then when I said introduce me, she said no, I'm a man. So I went and knocked on his window. I wasn't being aggressive, but I could see how he took it as someone who was in the military who doesn't know me. I could see where maybe his hostility was, but or his feeling that it might have been hostile. But in my mind, I'm like, hey, I said I want to introduce myself because I understand you've been around my daughter. For him, Ken pillow talking already with her. He don't know me, so obviously when you're sitting with a woman and this is your woman, whatever she say, yeah, fuck, dude, whatever, all this, I'm sure he's buying into it. Right. So he's like, hey man, you need to go talk to her like on some smug shit. And I'm like, okay, nah, like, and then I think what triggered it was he said something and I took a step back and I said, okay, bet I got something for you. In my mind, I didn't have my gun with me, but that's not what I was thinking. He didn't want to fight though. So when
What
I
did you
said,
have for him?
huh?
What did you have for him?
I had these hands. He didn't want to fight. So, you know what I'm saying? He didn't want to fight. And so when I said I got something for you, in his mind, which I understand, we had this conversation, and from man to man, I respect it. In his mind, he felt threatened. He don't know me. He opened the door and he had a gun. He said, I will kill you. And I said, and I at that moment in time, I didn't even give a shit about the gun. I turned around and called Tricia bitch for the first time ever. And I said, bitch, this is who you got around my kids. This man tried to pull a gun. This man pulled a gun on me. She said, I didn't see it, blah, blah, blah. Then he puts the gun up and then he acts like he wants to fight, but he's still way over there. So he doesn't want to fight. And then they leave and I call her phone. She answers, but she doesn't hang up. And I'll never forget. He said, you know, I'm crazy. I will kill him and sleep good at night. He needs to be worried about Zaria wanting me to be her daddy. And that was 5 years ago. And look where we are now.
Wow.
So y'all want to talk about mental, like, it ain't nothing but God that's keeping me from doing everything
Same.
that all my homeboys, friends, everybody else is looking at me like, bro, you tripping. But I see the bigger picture. And if I can help somebody else that's going through this shit, bro, and we can save some lives, then it is what it is. You laugh at my pain.
That was in 2020. This happened 5 years ago.
That was
2019.
2021.
2021.
So I know y'all dates 2021.
Yeah. So at that point in time, was that when you were? That's what you had moved out, but you were still in the area, or is that when you were in Atlanta?
So her sister passed in July. I moved upstairs. It was October. I decided to leave the marital home because she was ironically, she was, rest in peace, Kiki Jabbar. My son played travel baseball with Amin and their kids all throughout his childhood.
So you knew Kiki
very well. Yeah, my son played baseball with Amari and Amin the whole time. So Amari, her son, was a 3-sport athlete. My ex was chastising him because she had just saw Amari on the news as a 3-sport athlete. So she was telling my son, like, because he didn't want to play sports for real, even though he was athletic. So I told him he could take a break at like 14. I'm like, bro, you don't have to play no more. So he's being lazy though. So she's just basically telling him that he's lazy and that your dad's not making you do this. And I happen to come home at the time and I walk in on him. right? And then at that moment, I just said, I don't want to do this no more. And I left and I got a
So
bottle, right? She's
was
talking about
that
the bottle. Yeah, I left and got a bottle because it was like, and I knew at that moment I had to stand on it. I've been feeling that way for years. It wasn't just a decision I just made rationally.
Yeah.
I didn't leave her when her sister passed and all of that. No, I didn't. No, it wasn't like that. It was at some point you break,
Hmm.
and I was breaking to where it was either I separate myself or shit's gonna get bad,
Stupid. Yeah.
and ain't no coming back from that.
so that was in October, and where you came
I moved
back,
upstairs.
and you
October,
moved upstairs,
moved upstairs for 9 months.
and were
Then
you
moved.
separated at that point in time when you had moved? Did you consider yourself
What we
separate?
call separation. We was
Like
done having sex, and we
you were
wasn't
done
talking.
having sex.
We done having sex, and he wasn't talking. That from that time that I said I'm cool, that whole everything was out the door. No sex, none of that. It was we have not even been on that. Like I wouldn't even know how to even approach that.
Mm.
And
So
then
So I
nine
want to
months
switch.
upstairs
later,
for I'm gonna finish the timeline because I know it's
yeah,
important.
Okay.
Upstairs for 9 months. My kids are confused because me and mom are not talking. You know what I'm saying? We're going day to day life, and I'm like, look, it's the only way that we can figure out whether we. When I decided to move around the corner, it wasn't to say like, oh, I'm just done. It's like, look, we haven't really talked about it because you don't know how to communicate, and I'm tired of over communicating. Um, so let me just move out and see. Okay, let's spend a year away from each other, like in separate homes, and we can still
Hmm.
kind of like maybe go on date or whatever. Let's figure that out. But then when I moved out around the corner, it became a little bit more contentious because now she's like, it's
Mm.
real. Now it's real. Now it's like, now she's hurt. Now it's a man will never leave his family, and I'm gonna make sure a man is in his household. Now it's mental manipulation to my daughter. Now my daughter's reading text messages saying, "Why are you calling mommy a bitch?" Now my daughter's laying up with her while she's gossiping to her friends about how hurt she is. So all of that continues to alienate me. My son, he's like, bro, I don't know what to think. I'm just want to be quiet and stay in my room. So I spend that 9 months, you know, was that 20? Yeah, and then in 2022 is when because it's 2025, I've been here 3 years, October. Okay, 3 years in Atlanta, October. So
Wow.
I tried the reason why. So after I was living in that house, that apartment for 9 months, my job was like, hey, we want to offer you a bonus and a whole lot more money to go start traveling because I had a home base there. So they was like, look, I'm going to travel, give you all this and this. And at this moment, I'm like, we're not together. So like, yeah, let's go get the bag. So I started traveling. So that travel is what kind of, I think, is what separated that time. So 2021, 2022, and then when the Ken situation happened, I could not no longer I couldn't function because he was at the house. I didn't even know he was at the house. I would pull up and I would see a car. My son was like, "Oh, that's mom's friend," and then it went from seeing the car outside to seeing it in the garage. And I'm like, "Who's in the house?" And Trish is like, "Oh, my friend." And then it went from he's paying bills to he's living here. So now I can't go spin. I can't pull up because the gun situation already occurred. So now every time I'm thinking I'm on one. Like I'm on one. Like okay, I'm
Yeah.
plotting, but then I'm thinking like I can't do this. I can't do this. So my mind was like, you know what? If I've been in Huntsville this whole time, it's time to go.
And to be clear, you never were part of the discussion of him moving in, right?
Hell no. I asked my son
Make
not
that
that long
clear.
ago. He said he didn't even know. He said he had to ask. No.
Make that clear.
Ken moved in because he's paying bills, right? You got to think. I've been a breadwinner.
Yep.
Trish making decent money, but she has her money and my money, right? So
Hmm.
was hers is hers, or
Two
was
income
mine?
household of one.
Right, but she's getting the lion's share, right? Because I don't want to argue, I don't want to fight, whatever. If you see how my kids are articulating they think, that's me. Okay, that's not. I'm sorry, that's not a her side of the family. That's me. That's my family because these are the things that we have real, genuine conversations about feelings and talk and all that. Right? She can't do that.
Let's switch gears to one of the most talked about scenes of the season. One of your first scenes was with Marceau, where the two of you had a one-on-one sit down that the conversation was all about accountability and responsibility as a father and as a husband. And I know earlier you talked about the counseling that you've pursued after filming. What was one of the takeaways, the big takeaway from you from that sit down with Marceau?
Don't try to get advice from somebody who's not trying to see where you are in life. Wrong person to be asking advice to.
Hello.
So he was the wrong messenger. He was the wrong messenger.
Wrong messenger. But that's okay because you guys have to understand my connection to the show is Marceau. Everybody really.
Yeah.
My thought process was me and Ken have had different altercations, and one of them occurred at Black during Alabama A&M's homecoming. So I wanted to, obviously, people have to understand reality TV in real life. You have to intertwine it.
Yeah.
So my idea, when they asked me who do you want to talk to, I said Marceau. I worked with him.
Yeah.
He don't really know me, but he knows me. I've supported him throughout this TV stuff on Black. I've got him, sponsorships at InvestFest. I've done other things with him, right? But I don't know him, right? He didn't even know I was married to Trish, right? So when I went into this, my first process was truth and reality.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a fuck about the truth, right? So I was going there thinking I could tell my truth, right? But the
Yeah.
reality is that the truth was already, the narrative was already set based on
Exactly.
whoever,
Third
however,
standard.
whatever, right? Based on whatever Trish and Ken wanted to come in and say, hey, this is why, because what else you gonna talk about, right?
Right.
I went in there also wanting to protect her, right?
Yeah.
Because we had discussed when I finally made a decision, not about getting no money, not about doing nothing, but I said, if we're gonna do this, what are we doing it for?
Yeah.
Do we have a platform? Do you have an LLC? Do you have a nonprofit? Like, what are we doing it for? Because I have all of that. Do you have the trademarks? Like, what are we talking about here?
Mhm.
So I have all of
Mhm.
that. So my mindset was, okay, never done the TV stuff before. I know all about it, but let me go in here and try to take accountability, right? You can't take a 2.5 hour conversation, put it in 5 minutes, and then also have a conversation with Marceau, who's been on TV for 8 years, right? So
Yep.
obviously he knows
Yeah.
what to say. He's very, but that man was not even trying to figure out where I was, right? That's like me calling him and say, Marceau, how do I get to Huntsville? And he says, go left. Well, how the
Yeah.
fuck do you know where I'm at?
Right.
So I'm taking advice from the wrong person.
Yeah. So you feel like he judged you unfairly, and he had the impression, that absent father impression going into the conversation.
Yeah, no, Marceau would rather see a lot of these men would rather stay at home and be miserable and be unfaithful and all of that for these children. And because I chose not to, I think it goes against how they think you're supposed to handle things, right? So that if they say, "Oh, you left," it makes no sense to me for someone to say that because you decided to move to another state without you knowing any intricate details
Yeah.
to say that you're an absentee father. Like how
Right.
how how can you give such strong opinions? How can anybody give such strong opinions when y'all don't even know? And
The
my
Right.
details.
my kids have not once said that. Trish has not once said that I haven't been there for my children. Like it's starting to play into this narrative, but I've never beat it on her. I didn't have
Yeah.
no babies on her. I wasn't at Monaco cheating. Like we can go into all the detail, right? But like, no, Marceau was the wrong messenger.
Yeah.
It opened my eyes though.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to take advice from somebody who's not even trying to understand where you are.
Right.
So I'm assuming right now y'all don't have like the best relationship based on what you're
Oh,
saying, you and Marcel.
nah, actually, Marceau is interesting. I
No.
understand him, right? So I'm no longer on. I'm standing on business and respect and my
Yeah.
character. So I don't like Marceau to me is not as a non-factor in my life, right? Until we start filming, right? He doesn't pay
Mm.
my bills. He hasn't picked up my kids from school. He ain't nothing, right? So
On
he's a
check up on
non-factor.
you, nothing.
No, he's a non-factor. But I mean, I have spoken to him. I just saw him, right? So I understand. Like we have. It went from a hey, I know you. We work together, but now you're kind of in this inner circle, and then now he's saying like, oh, I'm not. I'm just not one to just lay over. He didn't see the amount of like controversy, amount of conversation that it created around him, right? So I've upped his stock, right, based on just whatever I've done, right? So
Facts.
and so I understand the value now, right? So now it's a
Yeah.
mental game of manipulation with him when it comes to this TV stuff, but real life, I'm standing on business and respect. So all this dumbass
Mhm.
stuff like that, I'm not going for it. Like
So give it
I've
more
given,
coworker.
huh?
Yeah.
It's
It's
giving more
co-worker.
coworker.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you one thing. I never worked for Marcel. Okay, I was a
Yeah.
manager in the Scene Lounge, right? Two separates, right? I used to cook for Todd Tickner, right? When they built Bridge Street,
Uh,
I was a manager, and Marcel was the movie manager. So I don't like when people try to downplay and act like he's never my boss,
All
ever.
right.
Yeah.
To ask me for food, and I would get him give me tickets.
Like another big moment was your on camera sit down with Trish and Ken. Oh, that was that first time coming face to face on there. So, do you believe when that conversation that Ken was offering to assist you in taking care of the children was sincere, or how are you feeling about that?
It was preposterous. I told him that. I said, Ken, thank God we've had this conversation. I said, Ken, how do you expect me to actually, like, that's arrogance. You want me to come to you to talk about some shit and I don't even know you. What is your last name?
Right.
How old are you? Where were you born? Do you have any siblings?
Do
Like,
he
who
have any
are you?
kids?
Do you
Do you have any
can't
kids?
have
Like
kids?
that, like focus
That's
on
the point.
yours.
My how I felt at that moment was, for one, that was the first time me, Trish, and Ken ever sat down in life and it was in front of
Ever.
That's
ever.
intense. That's
Bro,
intense.
you got
Wow.
I cried before I went inside. And I
I would have
wasn't
too.
crying. First of all, they did not see me cry. Okay. They had already left. And the only reason why I cried because all the emotions that hit me and I had wanted to see my daughter that whole time and she made an
Yeah.
excuse for me not to
Mhm.
see her that whole time. And then I had just watched Ken play basketball on Facebook with my son and my nephew, which is what we did every day.
That's
We
a lot
doing
of
this.
emotions at one time, and then being filmed and having the camera. That's a lot.
And then you wanna
Yeah.
I brought the divorce filing, and it was initial paper, guys. It was just an initial paper, and nobody knew that I brought that. Production didn't know that. Nothing. It was for me to get the ball rolling. It wasn't me and Trish. We didn't talk about it, bro. Us getting the divorce is not. It was not. We just didn't talk about it.
You did say that Trish contacted you and said about coming on the show to talk about the divorce. How many times have y'all even discussed the divorce before filming, before the Love and Marriage Huntsville cameras?
I don't know, once or twice. Not
Once
really.
or twice?
Probably not even real discussion. Kind of like because I'm the one that made the decision to leave. I'm the one that said this, right? But I would say, okay, let's figure it out. Let's talk about it. But I also, y'all, they're still my friends. So it still hurts, like, to be cold and stuff and be like, oh, because I know that, when you're in a relationship and you go through these stages, there's a point where you can either come back or you can stay out.
Yeah.
I was supposed to stay out because I knew that I had came back all those other times. And so,
Something had to change. Something had to be different.
right, it had, it
That makes
had,
sense.
it had to be a sacrifice. And I'll be honest, I sacrificed, and my son went from a C student to an A B honor roll. Played sports. My daughter became a great dancer. Trish found herself. I've been able to do certain things that I would have never ever been able to do.
Mhm.
Traveling, all of that. I'm very sad about that too because when it comes to traveling, I've been begging to take my kids on out the country. I even had the applications in the drawer for a year. But that's where I sit back and think about myself as a man. Like I think Trish wanted me to she wanted me to say no. She wanted me to do things, but I didn't. No one really taught me. It's almost like a catch-22. So seeing her take my daughter and my son on their first trip out the country is crazy because that's all I ever wanted to do.
Yeah, that
So,
that must be stressful.
so did Trish or Ken pay the full filing fee, or did you split the cost?
Y'all so funny. I don't know. Ken probably paid
Well,
for it.
I'm
It was a
asking
joke.
because
Like y'all, I
okay,
think
it's a
people are
joke.
so silly because when I was like, it's $400. Like you obviously can see that I was being funny.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was.
I don't know who Ken probably paid for it more than likely.
So they didn't have that's not what they said about the gas money for the graduation party and helping you get there. That's not true.
You think that I need gas money? $40.
That didn't make sense.
How
That
much
didn't
gas?
make sense, to be
You
honest
should
with
have.
you.
You should have
Yeah,
asked
it's
me
money
how
to
much
get
gas
there.
money. Was it a half a tank, quarter tank? What was it?
But
Did I
why?
have left over? How did you give it to me? Did you cash app it? Did you sell it? Like people should start
Yeah.
asking
Come on now,
questions.
you can get a
Yeah.
chauffeur.
Yeah.
You could have just
You
said
can
I
get
could
your
have.
Uber.
own
I could
car.
have just
They
Like
could have
had
just
what?
said
somebody
Uber.
pay for it.
So why do you think there's such a delay in Trish and Ken? Because it seems like Trish is not really trying to make it happen. She doesn't seem like there's a lot of urgency on Trish's end.
How can you get married when you're not healed from your last situation?
Hmm.
She's still trying to. Look, Trish is in a position where, you know, I'm not there, right? So what she thought she had as what her life was no longer. Then you have this man who wants to be with you more than you want to be with him, but because he has finances, it makes it easier for her to be like, okay, yeah, because you paying bills and all that. You know what I'm saying?
Compliance.
You have the same goals and working out and all that, and he's obviously very, you know, he cares a lot more. So I think she's not ready.
Right.
She's not
Yeah,
ready,
sure.
and I don't even blame her, y'all. Y'all can't even be mad at her for not
No.
being ready, right?
Yeah,
And y'all can't
It'd
be
be more
mad
of a
at
red
her,
flag if she just jumped in.
and
exactly.
y'all can't be mad at her for how Ken feels because that's on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ain't
Yeah,
everybody holding him hostage? You don't
Yep.
have no kids. You're not married. That man could leave today
yeah,
Hmm.
and cut ties. And I promise you, my kid's life ain't gonna change.
yeah,
Trish, you know, I'm sure somebody else will come up there and figure it out with her. Okay? She's not ready. But Ken does love
yeah.
on her. And I think for her it's too good to be true. Because
I
Ken
think
is
Mm.
definitely her father. Having a conversation with him, I finally realized why she cares about him so much. Because he is exactly who she always wanted me to be, which is her father, and that's not me.
Speaking of Ken, during Xavier's graduation party, Ken made a toast where he recognized himself as a parent of you and Trisha's children.
Real
You
crash out moment.
you
Real crash out moment.
interjected and you clarified, no, I'm the father of me and Trisha's children. I'm Xavier's dad. And was this the first time that Ken tried to undermine you in front of the children before?
Man, that man been undermining me in front of my children for years. I'm not there every day. I can only
Yeah.
imagine what he's been telling my daughter. Are you serious?
Yeah.
I got that's why I said this journey is still a journey because I have so much reversing I have to do. It's still like I am not even there yet.
Is
Like
that the first thing you
we
heard
a little
of?
step back, huh?
Is that the first thing you heard of him undermining you?
No, but I'm saying that was the first time he tried to do it in front of a group of people that we
He did
don't
it in
know.
front of a group of people,
Yeah,
and
no, I think, and that
yeah,
was a very real moment because I was
yeah,
really thrown off, and I was trying to figure
Yeah.
out who's he. Like, how are you? First of all, how are you standing here talking? Um, right?
He one of the
I'm
moment.
standing there looking at y'all.
Yeah.
yeah,
TV.
Now, why is my daughter next to you?
Yep.
yeah,
These are the things that I don't understand. And then Trisha's, you know, mind you, I understand her to the core, right? People don't understand. I know her inside and out, every inch of her body, how she thinks,
yeah,
and her snickering and all that. She was loving that shit. For her, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like it's petty. It's like, oh,
Yeah, it really grinded my gears because I'm sitting there watching and I'm like, this was
she don't
rehearsed.
care. She
This
don't
was
care at all.
rehearsed. Like y'all already knew what y'all were gonna do. Y'all had a plan to try to make you look bad. You know
I
what I
don't
mean?
think
Or not even
no.
that they like
I don't
they
think it was
just
rehearsed. I came in there on one, right?
mm,
I came in there
Mm.
on purpose. Like
mm,
people ain't need to understand. Okay, we had a graduation party, so we
mm.
have to do these things. I'm not discrediting, right? Reality
Yeah.
TV is reality TV. People need to
You're
be
right.
clear,
Of
right?
course.
So we recreated this
You
situation,
have
but it
to
was
do
a
it.
very real situation. There was real family members. I had never met the cast members. I brought my business partner, and my anxiety is through the roof. They had been on the internet talking crazy and doing all this wild stuff, so I'm already like trying not to be on some real like
yeah.
masculine energy. So now I'm like, okay, well let's just have fun with it. So yeah, everybody take a shot of your liquor. Let's take a shot. Let's
And
go.
then I know that we saw your son pull you aside and he was talking to you and he was saying like not to try to comment on what was happening. How do you think your kids are seeing or feeling about the dynamic that they're seeing on television with y'all three? Do they open up and talk to you about it? Because I know it's very different from seeing it like in real life, you know what I'm saying? And then having it play out on TV and then going to school, having their friends see, like, how does that all play into them?
My son is my angel. Thank
Oh, that's
God.
awesome. That's awesome.
Thank God for Xavier. Y'all don't even know. Like that boy has saved me so many times
That's
because he
awesome.
understands that he needs me and he knows my daughter needs me. So my son has been affected because yes, when we have these issues online, you know, he's 19, y'all. His friend,
Yeah, he's not a kid.
so he's like, Dad, what the fuck is going on? He doesn't know. He doesn't understand. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
My daughter, I don't know. She's confused. She's thoroughly confused. You got this man loving on her. Your daddy's not here. every day. You got spending money and doing all these things. Like she's so just. But that's my twin, and I tell her every day, "You're my twin.
Yeah.
That's my face. You look like me. I taught you how to dance." So the conversations have always been reassurance, despite what's going on TV.
That's awesome.
I'm not even going to speak on. We had a situation that occurred that you probably will see in a couple months.
Ooh.
I ain't fucking with it. I'm sorry. So like there
Yeah.
was something that occurred that filmed this past week and set us back.
So you are
Damn.
currently filming the newer season?
I mean, obviously, but I don't know. I'm confused on how that's supposed to play out, as far as me telling, right? But I mean, I think it's safe to assume that I'm gonna be here for a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know anybody else that's been on this many episodes and not on the intro yet. So
Or get a confessional, because we haven't heard from you in a confessional. And
Right.
I've been waiting for that, which is why we were so excited to have you interview you, because we all really wanted to hear what you had to say about everything that we were seeing, because we're
Yeah.
like, we only get to one side. We're only getting one
Right.
perspective of it.
to Love and Marriage and the production and stuff, this caught them off guard.
I
Right?
think so too.
I
Yeah.
think they thought they was coming in with a storyline, but I said nobody did their research on me.
Mhm.
Like they should have known. Like
I
anybody
thought they
that
had a
knows me,
narrative already.
they would have known not to come at that angle. They would have came with something totally
Yeah.
different. But because I don't care about the cameras, I guess it comes off as great TV.
Well, it's because you're real. It's really hard. It's really hard to not be engaged with someone who's being real about a very difficult situation, and you could tell that. You could tell the sincerity, and I think that's what they were unexpected about. Because I can definitely see what you're saying. I think they thought you were going to come in real quick and they were going to paint you a certain way and you were just going to deal with it and then bounce. But the fact that you didn't do that, I think you're 100% right. You threw them off guard a little bit.
They're still thrown off. Shout out to Melody Shari. Woo woo.
So
Well, speaking of,
would you be open to asking Melody out on a date one of these days?
And that's how we end.
Ask her on a date for what? I've already asked her on a date, but the date is for business. Y'all understand? I respect her way more than I would. I would rather get money with her than date her.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Facts.
No. Mel. People need to understand. Mel and I have parallel stories. We both went through the same stuff with the same type of people, and they both are intertwined with each other anyway. So like, there's that parallel connection, and there's that extra connection that my ex and her ex has gotten, made. I don't condone anything Martell has done. That shit's whack. I don't condone Ariane and all this extra shit that she's doing, right? And I understand why Mel is who she is now is because of what she had to go through. And I'm going through the same thing in less than a year though. So now my mind is like, damn, I can only imagine what she went through and where she's at now. But I think it's really funny that people think that she's on some higher level than me. And y'all don't even know like who I am or who I know or who I've dated or anything. So I think it's funny. But I think Mel is a beautiful woman. I think she's very smart, strong, resilient. And I'm excited for like the things that I have planned for us. And it's not dating.
okay.
Well, we're ready for that too.
It would be
Question
nice
before
though,
we
huh?
go.
She is cute though. Let me stop playing. I'm like,
That's why I'm like, never say never.
See?
Come on
let
now.
me stop playing. Hey,
Never say never.
if I do it, if I do, it'll be out the country. If we gonna do it, y'all, we gonna do it big. So
Ooh.
it'll be out the country. If we gonna do it, y'all, we gonna do it big. So
Ooh.
So, last question before we go. Moving forward, can you see yourself co-parenting successfully? Co-parenting successfully with Trish, or do you think there will always be underlying tension with Ken being involved?
what does co-parent successfully mean? I think for me, it's
Communication.
to answer your question. Can I see it? Yes. Can I see it right now? No.
Awesome.
I'm no longer talking to anybody but my daughter and my son. So I don't communicate with anyone.
Smart.
I call my son and I call my daughter and I tell them pull up or I'm pulling up or let's do this or let's do that. I would rather more communicate with Ken now than her.
Oh.
Wow.
Wow. I mean, the good thing is your
Well,
kids are old enough that you can communicate with them individually. You don't have to necessarily have to go through
that's
either
the
one of
most
them at the
important.
moment.
Yeah.
But my daughter is my biggest. We're not there yet. She's very much
That's interesting that you said that about Ken, with Ken on the show saying that Trish is being deceptive when it comes to Martell, especially when it
He
comes
just
to
doesn't want to say
Martell.
she's a liar. She's a liar, y'all. She be lying. She just be lying. Sorry. She's never gonna look. She's not gonna admit Martell because she doesn't want to lose Ken. Ken told her that
Mm.
if you did this, I'm gonna leave you. Of course not. She don't want to lose that. So why would she ever
Speak
tell him
on
that?
it.
And why does it matter? Let's be clear, y'all. If you come to my house and I'm single, we are not working out in the gym. It's not hard, y'all. We've been to this man several times. You're still married. I'm still living in the home. He hits your DM. You go hang out. He doesn't even have a gym in the house. Y'all watching movies now. Like you've only been like, come on, y'all. But my thing is y'all persecuting me, and that's fine. Because at the end of the day, it will prevail. But y'all have to understand, she's not going to admit it. So let the story go. It
Maybe
doesn't matter.
maybe
Mark
they were doing
doesn't care.
squats.
Nobody cares. And honestly, even if she did do it, it does not matter because we weren't having sex. Melody and Martell were having whatever issues they had. You know what I'm saying? They need to take it up with God.
Marquez, it was a pleasure having you hang out with the
Yeah.
bros on Bro Chat. Thank you for coming on with us.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate you.
What's
Where can
next?
people follow you and find you to keep up with you?
Uh, Change my name to Marques.Burnette. So we're gonna brand myself. You know what I'm saying? I am who I am. So Marques, Marquez. It's Marques, not Marquez, y'all. I don't
Thank you
understand.
for clearing that up. Oh my God.
Marques,
It's
Marques
wonderful.
.Burnette, Burnette on Instagram, on Facebook. I just updated my Twitter. I have a Don't Crash Out clothing brand and movement coming out soon. Woo Woo clothing brand with Melody, just playing off of Woo Woo. Woo Woo stands for happiness, excitement, and approval. That spawned out of the Dr. Heavenly interview. I don't know where it came from.
Did
Melody
you
That's
say
shouted
awesome.
it out.
with Melody? With
Yeah.
Melody?
I went. Let me not say with, but
Okay.
with approval, meaning
Okay.
Okay.
meaning it's mine, and I'm sure that she'll be shouting me out too. So yes, no,
Okay.
Seventh Avenue Beauty. Let's
Amazing.
not confuse her Seventh Avenue Beauty with anything I got going. So anything with the woot woot is all fun and games, but it's also it's a real thing. Happiness, excitement, and approval. Shout out to Melody Shari Woot Woot. And then also I have the Break Bread podcast with Dr. Waller and my other hosts, which when this is said and done, the Break Bread podcast concept is pretty much bringing two people or two different scenarios where there's conflict that I want to follow people that have conflict that are affecting children, but we bring them into the studio. They tell their sides of the story where they can have conversation that they would never been able to have. My clinical psychologist listens. Me and my co-host give our back and forth conversation. We have a meal on the table. At the end of that
I
conversation, they have
live.
a choice to break bread with that person. Because if you break bread with somebody, you can no longer be enemies. And if you break down the word enemies, that means no longer be hostile. So I have made the decision to no longer be Ken's enemy. So we don't have to be hostile. We don't have to be best friends. But we've broken
Right.
bread together. So we've had this meal so we can move forward for the betterment of children. And that's my movement.
Right.
And
That's
also
awesome.
people to not crash.
Dope.
Amazing.
Great.
Oh, and I have a men's care too. Alien Men's Care, by the way. My auntie is the number one black white labeler for beauty products. And I'm not going to tell you the names behind some other people, but my auntie is also developing my men's care line. And hopefully you guys will be able to see that. And then I also am working with, I have a business, RC Skills Academy, and we're doing a youth empowerment movement in Huntsville.
And we're gonna list all those links that Marquez is mentioning as they're available. They're gonna be available for you to click and learn even more as they become available.
I'm going to
So
send
All
all
in
y'all
the
some merch too,
description,
man.
right?
Give me,
and we
I'm
can
trying to
Yeah.
get
wear it on
everything
Bro
out.
Chat.
Well,
Yeah.
we're on bro
Right.
chat
Please.
for you.
Hey, I appreciate y'all for giving me a platform. I wasn't taking interviews. I got a couple of bloggers that are gonna be mad at me for taking interviews. I chose you guys based because you guys are men. Obviously it doesn't matter whether you have kids or not, but at this point I feel like so much conversation with women and I think what I've done is open the door for them to actually look into their own lives, right? And that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that I can have some men to talk to, and I want to create more conversations with men because
Yeah.
It's really important.